because I've been a speaker on the other forums, I was going to insisted on getting my word in today as well. And I've spoken more from the use and sort of psychological approach to how people use space. In the past, I've talked quite a lot of different aspects. And so what I just wanted to only really sort of to start off the discussion It's a Japanese word, and I think that it's gaining currency in the sort of organizational development literature because it has to do with this question of knowledge, which Peter talked about, and which is sort of assumed in all these communities that we create in these buildings. And the idea is that as we go forward into the organization of the future, it's knowledge that's going to be the most important resource of the organization. The fact that the people that we're hiring are more skilled and more competent. We're bringing in higher rate of talent into our organizations, and we're investing in training them. So we're increasing their skills and competencies. And this becomes the capital, really, of the organization. So there's an investment in not wanting, as I mentioned before, not wanting to lose that. But the Japanese idea is that the organization as an environment, and with that then the space and tools that make it function, are key influences on how this knowledge capital generating process happens. And that we need to think about this system, if you like, of knowledge, not just use and application, but the whole business of creating and then sharing. You talked about tacit knowledge, accessing tacit knowledge, what people do, but then also understanding what the other category, which is explicit knowledge, is how they do it. So we're talking about the accruing of capital in these two categories, and how organizations can begin to focus their business processes, their operations, their planning, and then with that, right, their physical space, their technology, the social media they do or don't use, and the quality and health of the environments that they occupy, all focused on increasing the value of this human capital. And so there are now beginning to be researchers thinking specifically about how we can define bar, and how we can plan for bar, and how we can anticipate bar in an organization. And so in that whole process, space is becoming very important. Space has to have certain qualities. There's a Finnish research team doing work on this. What's bringing people together? Because there's generating new ideas might require some focused, concentrated alone time. It might require the sustained contact of the ideas cafes and the things that Peter talked about. So get back in touch and say, well, what about if we did it this way or that way? So there's this whole part of it that has to do with what opportunities does our time-space framework, if I can put it like that, offer to encourage people to use the skills and experience they have to have ideas, to be creative and be innovative. And then it's the second part of that is disseminating and sharing those ideas so it doesn't just stay in one person's head, so that it becomes part of the capital of the organization. So that, if a person leaves, there's a group that knows what that's about and how to do it, the explicit knowledge. And if we start thinking about what might be the qualities of bar, we're thinking about physical space, but we're thinking about environment in its broadest sense. We're thinking about the communications tools. We're thinking about social media. We're thinking about the healthiness of the people who were working there. We're thinking about how supported they feel by the environment. We're thinking about the organizational structure and the way that the organization sets its goals, identifies. Somebody talked just now about values, puts forward the values, and so that it creates, I guess, what I'm calling a community. which becomes the whole environment of that organization. And these factors all influence bar. And for those of us who are in the business of workspace, it's particularly relevant to the physical dimensions and qualities of what what I call the power of place, the actual places that come to exist in that organization, and clearly they can be virtual places as well, where this whole knowledge creation and sharing activity can happen. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I've only really got the one point to make, but I wanted it to sort of add to our discussion this evening so that we can see the different aspects of workspace of the future and where we're going and so on in these different terms, and hopefully generate some thoughts and discussion and how we can link an idea like this one, like bar, to healthier, cleaner, more sustainable environments, as well as to a more creative and an opportunistic, but in a good way, use of technology.
Can I have a crack at bar?
What?
Can I have a crack at bar?
Yes, please. That would be
because
great.
I mean, to me, that's a. Hey, mate, can you switch that to my computer?
Yes.
So I think I'm a network thinker. So, and we have a view that the smarter guys aren't working for us; they're working somewhere else. So our sense is not so much how do we tap into what we know as an organisation, is how do we use the connections we've got through massive networks to find shit out. So the other day somebody said to me, what do you know about social media and e-health? I said, I know bugger all, but I'll tell you all about it in half an hour. He said, well, how will you do that? I said, I'll just ask dudes what's going on in social media and e-health. So I tweeted out, bang, I said, who knows anything about social media and e-health, particularly patient to patient, patient to clinician? And the Twitter heads just came back to me. Have a look at patients like me. Have a look at Hello Health. Have a look at what Kaiser Permanente doing. Have a look at I'm Thinking of You. Have a look at Caring Bridge. It's this sort of, so we're thinking very differently to trying to capture the organisation's information. We're more interested in hiring network people who can connect to find out the tacit knowledge of the world and then bring that out, and when we capture it, publish it out again. So it's, because I'm a network thinker, it's sort of, I think in sort of microbiology terms and shit like that, but it's
also giving...
So I'm looking at the bar of the world, not for the organisation.
But it's also a different definition of knowledge. It's much broader, much more inclusive. I mean, it's already distributed, what you're calling
So what I'm
knowledge.
saying
It
is
doesn't
I just want to tap
belong
into it.
Yes.
So I don't have to do any work. I just say, hey guys, tell me this, and comes in. And just on the Macquarie building, there was another complaint. I was there the other day and I said, you've got those smart lifts for dumb people, just like my stupid building.
Yeah.
They are the worst thing. Well, I take a perfectly fantastic convention of get in a lift and push a button to, where's this bloody lift? Why does it take 10 minutes longer than everything else? Why can't you use proper demand management software?
Apart from the fact that you don't count because you're not an employee.
No, but the employees said, I said to the employees, it's like, what's going on with the lift? And they're like, we've got those weird ass lifts that you push the button. I'm like, oh, smart lifts for dumb people. Yeah, we got them. Yeah, so just that's another.
For those who don't know, the destination control lifts, and they are really unnerving if you haven't been in one before. They have no buttons inside. And so you press the button before you go in, and it tells you which lift to go to, and it takes you to your floor. Yeah. They save a lot of energy, so that's the ecology side of the equation.
But they create a lot of frustration, and they seem to take 50 hours every time.
The other part of thinking for workplace actually is the best you can do to avoid people getting in lifts when they can use stairs is good. Oh, yeah. So it might actually be having a really good benefit.
So maybe somebody's doing that, so I have to use the stairs.
Absolutely.
Bloody hell. Greenies.
So let me ask both of you what thoughts you might have about the points that I raised at the beginning that have come out of the other forums about key factors, drivers, influences, or that were mentioned or that weren't, that are taking us into the future.
Look, I'd like to pick on a couple of them. You mentioned diversity quite strongly. Yes. Diversity of tasks, diversity of cultures and that sort of stuff. And there was also a thread about the change in the way we think about the workspace. And I go back to my point about how outmoded our expectations for office design are. And it should not be underestimated. We have to reinvent the rule book. waste no. We did a bit of research a while ago to try and find out where the design guidance for the light level in offices comes from. And every standard is sourced from another standard. And when you realise that we actually found out it come from the early 1900s, and the reference test for the ideal lighting in an office was done from people threading pearls on a string. We've applied that same standard to typewriter-based tasks. We've applied that same standard to VDU-based tasks. It's just madness. And one of the things we advocate very strongly is the best thing you can do in the workplace is divide a choice of settings, so people can move their tasks to where they're most comfortable for that task. Get away from the homogeneity. Maybe some people like bright sunlight for some tasks, having a meeting, fresh air, open the louvers. Other tasks you want a bit of dark and you're sitting there with your laptop and you just want to focus, you go in a quiet room. I think we have a major emerging problem in that we're just not getting the understanding back into the building briefs which are being developed today.
Yeah, on the point of diversity, I get frustrated by it because, I use the saying car parks for blind dogs, To me, most organisations have this sort of respect for diversity, and I think it's driven more by the Equal Opportunity Act. It's like, I don't give a monkeys what religion you are. All I give a shit about is, do you think different to me? And if you do, I'm interested in talking to you, because breakthroughs happen with diverse people looking at things. And my best guy is a fifth generation Indian, or an Indian dude who's fifth generation Kenyan, who's a Muslim and a tech freak. And the reason I love him is, it's like, I have an idea and say, mate, how would you do it in Africa? Because he looks for a different window. Muslims don't believe in interest and all that sort of stuff. Mate, I'm designing this financial product. How would you do it from a Muslim point of view? I'm interested in how you think, and I don't give a monkeys what you are. And I think too much is that, we've got to worry about, the car parks for the blind dogs and, put all those weird things for the disabled people in the gym, in the toilet and all that. So value from diversity is different thinking, and until people sort of forget the respect shit, just give everybody respect. Everyone's good, great, fantastic. I don't care what your public holiday is. Just think differently with me. That's what I'm interested in. And if you want to get value from diversity, it's getting different people together, looking at the same problem, and just different windows of the world create the breakthroughs. So that's why I think diversity is crucial, but I think it's so underused in organisations.
So you're saying let's move past managing diversity and instead let's make something out of it. Let's use diversity, make the most of it. Yes.
Yeah, and I think there's so many HR people are all about the, you're a Muslim, so we better have a celebration.
Yes.
I mean, I'm the sort of antichrist, but it's reality.